Hello, welcome to the Basketball Soapbox. I'm your host, Daniel Daly. This will be episode 4 of season 3, where I'll be taking a look at the Celtics, Heat, Mavs, Clippers, and the Warriors' Draymond Green problem. That is something that has been a feisty situation for the Golden State Warriors in the NBA for quite some time now. But first, let's get into the Boston Celtics here. Getting off to a hot start there with the 10-2 start recently, just beating the Toronto Raptors in a feisty game where the Celtics had to show a little bit more resilience down the line there, but they got it done. And just looking at the Boston Celtics so far to start this season, it's just the first thing you notice is the offense has opened up a little bit more with the three-point shooting and the spacing of Porzingis. As I mentioned in other videos previously, that he's just a little bit better than Al Horford, especially offensively. Well, not just a little bit better. A little bit more versatile offensively, but I think from the three-point line, he's better than Al Horford. And being able to shot block and just create spacing a little bit more there for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Him and Jaylen Brown have seemed to have a little bit more of a two-man game. Jaylen is confident when driving to find Porzingis out there on the perimeter and pass it to him to launch a three from three-point range. So that's good to see that little chemistry building up there, and especially with Jason Tatum there as well. And that tandem so far to start the season. Jason Tatum there with 27 points, 27 and a half points per game, nearly 9 rebounds per game, nearly 4 assists per game. He's just continuing his all-NBA progression, right? Like we've seen Jason Tatum be that type of guy. And now we're seeing with the Celtics record in their pace of play, if he can become an MVP candidate and be in that conversation down the line. Obviously, it's too early to start in the season to say, even though Kevin Garnett has also said that he believes he's the best American player and the front runner for MVP so far to start the season. It's too early for me. It's way too early. We're not even a quarter way into the season. We still got about 10 more games to get there. But just looking at it from that standpoint, you're just seeing the growth of Jason Tatum and his continuation to be a superstar. Even when he's not shooting the ball really well, he's able to rebound, he's able to facilitate, he's able to do other things that even when he's in a shooting slump, that he can still affect the game in other ways to help his team win. And that's what I'm seeing from Jason Tatum so far. Jaylen Brown there, 22.9 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3.3 assists. Looking at Jaylen Brown, obviously you're seeing the growth of his game, his aggressiveness in certain games. Of course, that's going to continue. And I think everyone's just going to be looking at his turnovers, which is only at 2.5 so far to start the season. Jason Tatum's a little bit higher than that. But looking at Jaylen Brown, I think that's the thing where people are going to look at him and say, hey, are you improving your ball handling? Are you turning over the ball a lot? Some games, yes. Some games, no. So that's going to be the thing that we look at Jaylen Brown throughout the rest of the season. And I think he has to adjust playing with Tatum and Porzingis. The addition of Porzingis, having a guy that can go out there and score to that nature, as well as Holiday and Dereck White. I think Jaylen Brown has to find a way to fit in between all that. Obviously, he's the second leading scorer on the team, but just looking at it from the standpoint of him finding his niche early on in those couple games there to start the season, looked like he was trying to find his way. But so far, it looks like him and Porzingis have had a nice two-man game there, especially when those pick-and-roll situations or just looking for Porzingis on the perimeter when Porzingis is hunting around the three-point line for shots. So that has been a nice little sight for Jaylen Brown early on in the season. Looking on from that is just seeing how his ball handling, see if he can continue his playmaking. I think that's a point of emphasis that we want to see him doing that. And obviously having Porzingis there helps that. Having Dereck White and Drew Holiday facilitate helps Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum able to float a little bit more, not have to carry the offense and pick their spots where the team desperately needs them. They can step up and do that, but also rely on other guys to step up and knock down shots, which we saw in Toronto as well. Moving on to Porzingis, what can we say about Porzingis? He's been excellent for the Boston Celtics. His ability to protect the rim, I think, is one of the things that the Celtics desperately needed, especially with Robert Williams not being there and being hurt last year. Al Horford, even though he does protect the rim, he has had issues with bigger guys controlling guards coming in, contesting shots of that nature. Porzingis can do that a little bit better. Obviously, spreading the floor has been the biggest asset to the Celtics. and especially not with just the additions of Dereck White, Jrue Holiday. Porzingis has really been able to stretch the floor and shoot well from 3-point range. So those three guys have really been off to a good start, clicking also on all cylinders to start the season there for a 10-2 start. Moving on to the backcourt for the Boston Celtics, Dereck White and Jrue Holiday. Obviously, people are saying that they are the best defensive backcourt in the NBA. I agree with that. There have been some moments and lapses there where they have given up some runs in there over the course of games, but I think the flexibility with them to play both sides of the ball is the thing that separates them from last year's Celtics with Marcus Smart. And that's not a shot at Marcus Smart. It's just offensively, Jrue Holiday is able to do a little more than what Marcus Smart could have done last season. And looking at it from that standpoint, that's where the Celtics' flexibility on the offensive end has been tremendous for them, especially being able to shoot the ball. I think that's one of the things the Celtics have put a point of emphasis on. They're leading the league in makes and attempts, which is a driving point wedge between Celtics fans. Some people like it, some people don't. And I personally like it because I think that you're getting good shots. You're not taking bad or forced threes. You're getting good shots from guys like Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Holiday, White, Hauser, who I'll talk about in a little bit, Horford. You're getting good shots and more often than not in those situations to shoot the three. But back to Dereck White, who recently had the birth of his kid, and it was there in a little slump there, and we're all looking like, okay, is a shooting gone? And then he just starts hitting against Philadelphia. He has a big game. I believe he had 27 points, 28 points there in that game. Toronto knocks down a big shot to seal the game for the Celtics in that game just the other night. So seeing that consistency from Dereck White, who's in a contract here, of course, but he's playing really well, being able to facilitate, shoot the ball really well. And I think that's something that the Celtics are banking on, is that Dereck White is going to be able to shoot the ball like this and continue to do that throughout the season and into the playoffs. Looking at it from Jrue Holiday's perspective, who has just been able to just fill in all the gaps for the Boston Celtics so far, I believe he's at 13 points per game. I didn't have it there at the bottom, but 7.6 rebounds, getting those loose balls, doing all the little things, the little intangible things that you need to win. And to have a high rebound rate, to have a good passing rate of that nature, and especially playing defense the way he is with Dereck White and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, you can't argue this is one of the best defensive teams in the league. And now you have the best defensive backcourt where that first line of defense is every night, the ability to switch in those situations as well. The Celtics are in good position, especially with Jrue Holiday and Dereck White. I really like that backcourt tandem. They've been working really well. At first, it was like, who's going to do what? How is this going to work? Who's going to handle it? But it seems like they've been able to find a nice balance so far to start the season. Moving on to the bench, a pleasant surprise for the Boston Celtics has been Sam Hauser so far, roughly at nearly 10 points per game. 1 second here. Yeah, roughly at 10 points per game there. Shooting 45% from three. And I said to somebody, the blueprint for Sam Hauser is Duncan Robinson in the bubble. That is the blueprint, a guy that can kind of hold up a little bit deep. Well, he's been able to hold up defensively a little bit more than Duncan Robinson in his career. But Sam Hauser is feisty on defense at least. But I'm like, if he's able to knock down shots to that degree of a Duncan Robinson when he was in the bubble, then we're good. And it seems like Sam Hauser has been trusted, has been able to build some type of consistency and confidence. And that's the one thing I want to see over the course of the season, is if he can be that guy consistently to step in and knock down threes for the Boston Celtics, especially giving Brown and Tatum a breather there throughout games and when he's really counted upon. And then you can run different lineups in certain situations, or if anybody's in foul trouble, Sam Hauser can come in and do his job and be able to knock down shots. So that has been a pleasant surprise, his ability to knock down shots so far to start the season. And especially when we've been looking for a guy off the bench to step up. And it looks like Sam Hauser's trying to fill that void. So kudos to him for that. Another guy I want to look at is Al Horford. And last season, I felt like he was getting exposed, especially with the amount of dependence that the Celtics had on him to be that frontline anchor for them. Really wearing him down over the course of the playoffs, playing too many minutes, in my opinion. But this season has been on the minutes. It looks like a minutes restriction. It looks like if he's able to play that 20 to 25 minutes per game, the Celtics are going to be in good shape, especially when they have Porzingis there next to him. I would like another big on this team just to alleviate Al Horford a little bit more so we can have those couple nights off. Luke Cornett has been able to do a couple little things, has been able to have a couple good games, had a good game against Philly. But I just think another big option would be helpful there, even if it's not even a big. It can be a stretch forward or whatever the case may be, and see what Celtics can do there. From that standpoint, I just think that's good for Al Horford. Stay well, stay rested, being able to stretch the floor, being able to shoot the ball. We saw it in the Philly game when he was able to knock down some big shots in that game. So you're seeing that evolution of Al Horford being relegated to limit his minutes, more picking his spots. And I think that's good for Al Horford going forward. Now, looking at a guy that we thought was going to extend so far, taking the next step, was Payton Pritchard, signing that extension before the offseason, before the start of the season. And looking at him, it looks like he's just trying to find his role in this offense, find his role on this team. And he's struggling shooting the ball right now, but you're just hoping that he gets out of whatever slump he is in right now, because I think the Celtics are really banking on him, that even when Derek White or Drew Holiday take a breather or whatever the case may be, he's able to come in and fill that void and still be able to facilitate and obviously knock down shots and able to get his own offense. So that's going to be interesting to see what the Celtics do there. And I think that's the main thing for the Boston Celtics, seeing what guys are going to be able to consistently play. They're hoping that it's Hauser and Pritchard. We'll see how that goes. If those guys are able to continue to knock down shots and Payton Pritchard's able to get out the slump, I think that's the main thing. But I think the Celtics are looking for those guys to help because they're going to need them. And you're going to need a bench. And I know people are looking around the league and saying, hey, a lot of teams don't have a bunch of good benches here. They might have a guy here or there. But I think the Celtics consistently need that, especially from a guy like Hauser, especially from a guy like Pritchard, and especially from a guy like Al Horford. It's interesting to see if Danton can get in, Bichette can get in, and see what happens if Jordan Walsh gets called up and is able to fill in some void there at some point during the season. So I think those are the two things that are the question marks. Who's going to be able to step up? And the one thing that I've seen so far to start the season for the Boston Celtics, they don't get to the line enough. I think they're in the bottom tier of getting to the line. I think they're only at 20 a game. I think it's in the last 5 of getting to the line. Now, that's the one thing that I think the Boston Celtics need to be able to do, get easier baskets and being able to get to the line. I feel like over in the long run, where people are not liking the three-point shooting, where people are not liking sometimes the stagnant offense that happens, the ability to get to the line. And I think that's going to be on Brown and Tatum. Hey, you guys got to get to the line. Yeah, we're getting all these open shots, but you guys got to be able to get to the line. And I think that's the one thing the Celtics are missing, just that consistency of controlling the game, is being able to get to the line, force fouls, and shoot efficiently from the line. I think that's the only thing, but I'm not going to complain about the Celtics. The Celtics are off to a good start. Well, let's look at their schedule here. 1 second, I had it pulled up here. They have the Grizzlies, the Hornets, the Bucks, the Magic. So I think the first meeting with the Bucks is right before Thanksgiving. So looking at that game right there, that's a big matchup that we're looking at, because Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo look like they're forming a good bond there, a good consistency there now. And that's going to be a good stretch for the Boston Celtics there. It's going to be interesting to see if the Celtics can continue this hot start, and seeing that big matchup that's happening on Wednesday right before Thanksgiving. So that's going to be awesome to see. Moving on to the Miami Heat and Heat culture. This team was questioned coming into the season, especially losing Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, guys like that. And those guys that performed really well for them to be able to get to the finals last year. And they were like, how are the Miami Heat going to replace that? What's going to be the answer here? Like, how do you let those guys go when you're not going to fill the void there and try to replace them? And the Miami Heat culture, somehow, some way, found a way to do this, and so far having a good start to the season. They started off 1-4 to start the season, but have been 7-1 in their last 8. Now, looking at those last couple of teams there. They beat the Lakers, they beat the Wizards, they beat the Lakers, they beat the Grizzlies, the Hawks, the Spurs, the Hornets, and the Nets. And now you're looking at those teams are like, those are teams that are trying to find some consistency, or some teams that are bottom feeders, like the Wizards, the Grizzlies, the injured Grizzlies, the Spurs, who are not really looking to win right now, and the Hornets. You're looking at them and you're going, well, what is that? And you're not looking at the quality of opponents. I'm not doing that for the Heat. What I'm looking at is the consistency they're building throughout their roster. Those are the things that I'm looking at. Obviously, we're going to start with Jimmy Butler, who has just been Jimmy Butler. He's going to be a guy that's consistent. And I think Jimmy Butler is kind of doing the Joker thing, I want to say, kind of feeling out the team, letting the other guys get involved, but still being able to take over at certain times. 21.6 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, 3.6 assists. Obviously, a top forward in the league is going to have consistent play. Tyler Herro coming back, 22.9 points per game, leading the team in scoring, 5 rebounds, 4.56 assists. And looking at Tyler Herro, who has been a scapegoat in all these trade rumors throughout the season and stuff like that through the offseason and the past couple seasons out, honestly, because people just feel like Miami's going to try to get another star. And they have been trying to get another star, but Damian Lillard went to Portland. Other things didn't pan out. But looking at his play, he's coming in shooting the ball really well. I believe shooting over 50% from the field and from three. So kudos for him for doing that. Obviously, they were struggling with him, but he was a part of that 7-game win streak the first 3 games, and really turning it around for the Miami Heat. And obviously, he looks like he's trying to regain that edge that he had in the bubble. Obviously has been let down a little bit over the past couple of years with injuries and stuff like that, but it seems like he's getting back in his footing, and leading this team in scoring is a good thing for the Miami Heat. Moving on to Bam Adebayo, who is just a Swiss Army knife, who has improved his scoring, his rebounding, and his shot blocking so far to start the season so far. 22.7 points per game, 10.2 rebounds, 1.5 steals, and 1.3 blocks. Obviously has been a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. Looking at him, his impact, and I don't even think he's not even 6'10", he's like 6'8", playing a big man in this league and being able to do all those things and improving his rebounding, his aggressiveness on the offensive end. Those are things that Miami has been waiting for and been trying to do. But leaving the NBA Finals, I think that we saw really good signs of that, where he was upping his scoring and trying to do a little bit more. So over the offseason, you've seen the progression that we're seeing it to start this season. He's playing really well on both sides of the ball, and the ability to do that for the Miami Heat, another good thing in their favor. And that's one of the reasons why they're one of the better teams in the league so far to start the season. A guy that has risen from the dead, Duncan Robinson, who looked like he was out of the NBA last season, who just couldn't get right, especially showing up in the bubble and after that, the season afterwards, but struggled last year. I believe I don't think he only scored 6 points per game last season. And it has really, really, really helped the Miami Heat and seemed to find his form so far to come back this season. 14.3 points per game, 38.9% from three-point range, obviously shooting the ball, getting back to those things that he was doing in the bubble and stuff like that. Being able to shoot like that has been very, 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 very good for the Miami Heat so far, and especially with all the things that they're doing. Obviously, the OGs, Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love, of their ability just to score and shoot, spread the floor there, and knock down some shots and just bring that veteran leadership. Jamie Vasquez has been somehow the Miami Heat just find guys out of nowhere. Jamie Vasquez, I believe he went to UCLA. They drafted him. He's playing really well. Highsmith has been playing really well as well. So just looking at the Miami Heat, just continuing to keep it going. In the words of Michael Irvin, keep it spinning. Somehow just able to just find guys, plug guys, and continue to put them in the right place. You got to give kudos to Pat Riley. You got to give kudos to Eric Spoelstra, of course. Those guys, this team down in Miami just continues to find guys and continues to put it together. So kudos to them. Moving on to the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks are 9-4. All the teams I talked about have lost. Let me start there. The Miami Heat started the game on 22-1 run against the Chicago Bulls and then lost 102-97. The Dallas Mavericks were in the shootout against the Milwaukee Bucks, 132-125, I believe. Kyrie and Luka almost combining for 80 points. going up against Giannis and Damian Lillard, obviously a duo. Check the highlights of that, of course. But I just want to talk about what they have been able to do so far this season and have been able to just be consistently good. And Luka Doncic has been able to find another weapon. The additions of Dereck Lively, who they drafted, Grant Williams, have been obviously pluses. Let's start with Luka Doncic, who has just been magnificent, of course. Luka Magic, 31 points per game, 8.2 assists per game, 7.8 rebounds per game. And you're seeing a little dip because he's usually around that triple-double mark. He's a little dip. He's close again, but just a little bit underneath there. And I think that's just him building chemistry with this team and allowing other guys to do what they do in terms of trusting them. Guys like that with Kyrie Irving, who's averaging 24 points per game, 6.6 assists. And that's one of the things where they didn't have last season, obviously with the loss of Jalen Brunson, and they brought in Kyrie Irving midseason. So that was a clusterfuck last season, as we saw. But this season, they have been able to fine-tune their offense, especially with Kyrie Irving, especially when Luka gets doubled. He can find Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving has been able to knock down shots this season consistently, being also able to create for others and himself and to be able to get to the basket. These guys get to the line quite a bit as well, and I think that's the difference between the Celtics offense and the Mavericks offense is that where even though I think the Mavericks are second in shooting in the league in terms of attempts, they're also able to get to the line. I think they're in the top 10 for that. So that's one of the things where their offense consistently continues to be good, especially with Luka and Kyrie Irving, these guys that can create to that nature. And especially in the pick and roll with Luka Doncic, he's really attacking. We saw that in the Clippers game where they destroyed them, and it wasn't even close. So that's been the one thing. Even though their defense hasn't been good, they have guys like Grant Williams that can switch and be feisty on defensive end. Dereck Lively, who has been able to rim protect and be able to block shots. They'll have Maxi Kleber and Dwight Powell there to help and assist in that. But two guys that I want to talk about that have been good for the Dallas Mavericks so far. Tim Hardaway Jr., and he has been consistently good throughout his career. It's just been an injury thing. Injuries throughout New York, Atlanta, all of the stops that he's been in has just been injury prone. He's had injuries even in Dallas. So looking at it from that standpoint, but this season, being able to come off the bench, 18.5 points per game and shooting 40% from three, really doing his thing. And to nearly get 20 points per game off the bench for this Dallas Mavericks squad, that's a big plus for them. That is something that they can look forward to and be satisfied with. And to get consistent play from him and hopefully he stays healthy, that's a positive thing for the Dallas Mavericks, who are consistently looking for that offensive guy last year, next to a Kyrie Irving, next to a Luka, guys that can alleviate the double teams, the pressure off those guys, because it's like you're not going to try to leave that guy open. Obviously, you're going to try to stop Luka, but it's like you're really going to have to pick your poison with this offense. And these two guys that I'm talking about right now, also Grant Williams, who's shooting nearly 50% from three, but also getting 11 points per game. And looking at him, his ability to do a couple different things offensively as well, really opening and trying to expand his game, not just settling for threes, trying to dribble in and create off the bounce and stuff like that. So you're seeing that from his game. But these guys are getting open looks from Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Those guys command so much attention that these guys are going to get open shots, and they've been doing their job, and that's what they've been told to do. That's what they've been brought in. That's what Grant Williams was brought in to do. Obviously, we saw his slump in Boston last season, being out of the rotation. Now he's going to get another sign of life here in Dallas with Jason Kidd, Luka Doncic, and Kyrie Irving. Those guys have been able to find him, and he's been able to shoot at a very, very high clip. Hopefully that continues for the Dallas Mavericks. They're continuing to play really well. They lost tonight, but they went up against the Bucks, who are title contenders and one of the title favorites for this year. So can't win them all, but looking at it from that standpoint, the shooting ability of this team, the dynamics of Luka and Kyrie have been really well. Another guy I want to talk about is obviously Dereck Lively, who has been able to fill that Clint Capella role, Tyson Chandler role. Let me temper what I'm saying here. But just to be that type of rim running big, really everyone questioned this pick in the NBA draft, and everyone was like, why are they picking him? Why are they doing that? They had other options that they could have went after. But what he's been able to do so far, obviously with Luka Doncic with him, has been able to set picks and roll to the basket. And the creativity in the Mavericks offense is that they have the shooting around them where he can still roll to the basket and roam free, because now you have to overhelp on Luka Doncic. You have to sit there and watch out for three-point shooters on the perimeter, and he's been able to find the basket, be a lob threat for those guys, and finish over the top. And obviously on the other end of the floor, where they've had JaVale McGee, they had Maxi Kleber, and Dwight Powell, those guys aren't really shot blockers, even though JaVale McGee is, but he's not really going to play a bunch of minutes and not the best defender at this point in time of his career at that time. But now you have this guy who's a young athletic big that can read defenses and stuff like that and get the block shots. So that is something that's holding up on their defense, along with Tim Hardaway Jr., who's been all right, and along with Grant Williams, who has switchability, playing next to Luka, hiding those guys on defense that wasn't there before, and Dereck Lively is obviously a part of that. The Dallas Mavericks, I believe they're 9-5 now with the loss tonight, but they have been impressive, and everyone was kind of wondering what, even me, was wondering what this team would look like and how would they survive after last season, after they looked so bad offensively, defensively. And they're not a good defensive team. That's not what this team is right now, but they have guys that can get defensive stops, which is alleviating their offense, which their offense has been carrying them. But the ability to get those timely stops, even if it's little ones, is helping out the Dallas Mavericks. So kudos to them so far to start the season. Moving on to James Harden with the Clippers. James Harden has been struggling with the Clippers in terms of the team-wise, just trying to find that fit alongside Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. And when this trade happened, I thought the two guys that were going to be affected the most was Paul George and Russell Westbrook, because I feel like those are two guys that need the ball in their hands, where Kawhi he's going to get in his spots and get his scoring opportunities like that. But Paul George and Russell Westbrook, I felt like they need the ball in their hands. They're creators. James Harden being inserted into that, obviously there were some problems there. Losses against the Knicks, the Nets, the Mavs, the Grizzlies, and they got better against Denver, even though in Denver, Joker's Joker, and they're just bigger than them, and that was the main difference. I liked the way they played in Denver. That was the one thing I did like. James Harden, obviously, against Houston, had a big game-winning shot there against his former team, one of his former teams. So to sit there and see that with Russ moving to the bench, that opened up things for their offense. So I think that's the move going forward, and hopefully Russell Westbrook's able to find his niche off the bench and be able to create and sometimes play with the starters and stuff like that. But looking at James Harden, that's what he needed, right? I don't think it was the fact that Russell Westbrook, it was just too many times. It's just too many guys that need the ball in their hands. Paul George needs the ball in his hands. Kawhi needs it. James Harden needs it. Russell Westbrook needs it. So Russell Westbrook, the ability to sense something was going on and say, hey, I'll move to the bench for the benefit of the team. Kudos to him. But I don't think that was the issue. I just think that there's certain things that Harden brings to the table that Russell Westbrook doesn't, in terms of shooting ability, in terms of being able to facilitate a little bit better than him. But then now you put Russ on the floor that can kind of constricts the floor and stuff like that. And I think this team is trying to figure that out. So they're 1-5 right now with James Harden. Can they turn it around? I think so, especially when Mason Plumlee returns. But just in general, I just don't know if this was the move worth making for James Harden and trying to outpace everyone in certain terms of just having talent. So I think long-term, I don't know if this is going to work. But right now, it seems like they found something last game where they're able to stay on, especially the last two games, especially against Denver and against Houston the other night. So we'll see how this goes for the Los Angeles Clippers. I don't know. Obviously, Russ moving to the bench was a big help, especially for Tyronn Lue, because it's like, thank you for doing that, because now I don't have to force to start you or anything like that. We can figure out how to move forward with this. And it seems like James Harden has found his good footing. He's not playing bad. He's shooting 51% from the field and 38% from three, 16.5 with 4.7 assists and 5.2 rebounds. So we'll see where they're going to go from here. Looking at their schedule, they have the Spurs twice, they have the Pelicans, they have the Mavericks, they have the Nuggets, they have the Kings, they have the Golden State Warriors. So this is going to be a good stretch for them and a good test for them to see if Russell Westbrook moving to the bench was the answer and seeing how that continues going forward for the Clippers. Moving on to Draymond Green, the Golden State Warriors problem. Draymond Green suspended 5 games, so I believe 1 game was tonight. Tough loss for them against the OKC Thunder. 2 teams that are heading in 2 different directions, in my opinion. I think the Thunders are taking off and moving up. The Warriors might be moving down here. There's a lot of question marks there, especially with Steph Curry, who was recently out, recently came back, played tonight. Looking at this team, I think Steph Curry is the only other guy he's the only guy on the team over 20 points per game. Klay Thompson's struggling. Andrew Wiggins is struggling. Chris Paul is also struggling shooting from the field. He's passing well, but struggling shooting the basketball, and is just trying to figure out what's happening with this team. And Draymond Green, obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone has saw him get Rudy Gobert in a headlock chokehold there the other night when they were facing the Timberwolves. Klay Thompson and Jaden McDaniels got into a scuffle. Whatever. Rudy Gobert made the big-time mistake of grabbing Klay Thompson, obviously around the neck and stuff like that. And Draymond Green came into the aid of his teammate. Whatever the case may be, maybe a little more over-assesses. I thought it was funny. But obviously, the optics weren't good, and Draymond Green got slapped with a 5-game suspension. Charles Barkley said long ago when he got into the Dr. J and Larry Bird got into the fight, Charles Barkley held Larry Bird, and Dr. J just teed off. And Charles Barkley said he got fined and suspended because they said he helped Dr. J in the fight. And one of the things that he said was, hey, just stand there, don't hold nobody. And I don't think you should grab – in those instances, you should only be looking to stop your teammate and say, hey, let's break this up, whatever the case may be. When you grab the other team, survival mode goes off for everybody else, and that puts them into, hey, we got to stop this. So looking at it from that standpoint, understand why Draymond Green got involved. It looked excessive. The optics didn't look good. Obviously, the memes and everything came out. Of course, that's going to happen with Draymond Green in these type of situations. But looking at this for the Golden State Warriors, obviously Steph Curry's older. Klay Thompson struggling. Andrew Wiggins is struggling. Chris Paul is struggling. Jonathan Kuminga is moving up a little bit, so that's good for the team long-term wise, hopefully. But looking at this team, it's just like, how many times can they survive a Draymond Green situation? Like, how many more of these instances, suspensions, technical fouls, bad fouls, attitude, barking at the ref, how many more times can they survive this? Now, obviously, he's a 4-time champion. He's been monumental to helping the Golden State Warriors reach that pinnacle. No question. But over the course of this, especially right now, when Klay's struggling, Andrew Wiggins, Steph Curry's hobbled a little bit, trying to carry this team, trying to fight through these early season woes. And last year, they were able to overcome it, get to the playoffs, get to the second round, and stuff of that nature. But now you're looking at the Western Conference, and especially looking at when the 5-game suspension, he served one tonight. Against OKC, they lost. So now they're on 1 without him. So now it's just like, how many more times can the Golden State Warriors survive these type of situations where Draymond Green gets into an incident, gets ejected, gets kicked out of games, gets suspended? How many times can they continue to do that? And I believe they said 7 out of the last 11 suspensions for Draymond Green when he got kicked out of a game has been without Steph Curry. And people have joked, hey, he doesn't want to play without Steph Curry. And it's just interesting because now when he's suspended, we saw the other night, when he gets kicked out of the game, he leaves Klay Thompson alone. You know what I mean? And that's part of the trio, that the big three for you guys that have been able to consistently win championships, consistently make playoff runs, things of that nature. And it's just looking at from the optics of that, it's like, how many more times can the Golden State Warriors survive that? And it's tough. And it's really tough to see how much they're going to deal with that. Seeing what direction the Golden State Warriors go going forward, because Klay Thompson's contract is up at the end of the season. Draymond Green, I don't know if he's going to be able to survive there and be there in that situation if things continue to go poorly. And they're obviously trying to make another run, trying to get back to championship aspirations. And right now, team's good. I don't know how they bounce back from this in terms of last year, especially with Jordan Poole, the whole incident, the punch, them trying to overcome that. Saying Jordan Poole was the problem. Well, Draymond Green basically saying that. Saying the chemistry's better this year and all this other stuff. And it's like, at the end of the day, yeah, that might be true. You might like the people that are there, but this is in the terms of winning. Right now, Klay Thompson's averaging 13.8 points per game. Jonathan Kuminga's averaging 12.2 points per game, 12.3 points per game on 20 minutes. So that's a good positive sign for the Golden State Warriors. But in terms of everybody else, Dario Saric, Andrew Wiggins, Moses Moody, all these other guys that we don't even know. Some of these guys we don't even know. So what's next for the Golden State Warriors? Klay Thompson's tradability, maybe to a team looking to add some shooting. Miami, potentially. But I just don't know what's going on with this team. I don't see a way that they get significantly better. I don't know how they bounce back from this, especially with Draymond Green's more antics, Steph Curry getting older, Klay Thompson in the slump, Steve Kerr looking like he doesn't know how to coach at this moment. Has also been struggling right now. So that's pretty much it. Just more questions than answers for the Golden State Warriors at this point. Looking around the league here, let's take a look. Let's take a look around the league here. The Houston Rockets have been a nice surprise. Dylan the Villain, obviously having one of his best seasons as well. Them working with Fred VanVleet and Sengun has been a nice mixture. I want to see Jabari Smith take off, though. I haven't seen that as yet. Oklahoma City Thunder, SGA, Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Joe, who the other night just hit 7 threes, perfect from three-point range. Josh Giddey, all these guys. OKC's in the driver's seat. De'Aaron Fox having a nice season for the Kings. Obviously, I believe he's at 30 points per game and playing really well with them. Milwaukee seemed to turn things around with Giannis and Damian Lillard there, finally finding some footing and saying, hey, we got to go right now. After struggling, I think they won 3 in a row. The Indiana Pacers being fun to watch. Love Indiana, love Tyrese Halliburton, his game, his play style. Going to get interesting here for sure. The Lakers obviously struggling, and I think the Lakers in their head, hopefully I can talk with Emmanuel Vincent about this, but they just need to figure out if they're going to be a defensive team and figure it out from that side of the ball, because I think that's their only chance to salvage this. Otherwise, they're just going to be struggling in the Western Conference throughout the season. But that will do it for this episode. That will do it for this episode of the Basketball Soapbox. Obviously going to continue to follow the NBA season. The in-season tournament has been entertaining. I don't care what anybody says. These games have been competitive and good. The courts are a little bit slippery. Jaylen Brown got a little hurt in the game against Toronto, so they got to figure out that. And I'm like, do they have the ice rink underneath the court? And that's the reason why there was some slippage there throughout the game. So, yeah, they definitely got to figure out from that standpoint. But looking at the in-season tournament, it is good. Obviously, the bad teams are bad. The Wizards, the Hornets, the Pistons, yes, we know. But other than that, we've been getting really good at basketball from a lot of teams. Even the Hornets. I like the Hornets. I like LaMelo Ball, what he's been doing so far this season. So we'll see what happens continuing with that. Seeing how we get a little bit more further into the season. As always, continue to check out Ring Takes there with Brian and Lewis, where we talk wrestling. A lot of stuff going on. AEW Full Gear just happened tonight. SmackDown, Raw, a lot of moving parts. Survivor Series is coming up next week, so the picks are going to be coming up, and I'll be continuing to follow the basketball season so far. But that will do it for this one. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in.